We're going to call this meeting, this August meeting of the Lenore County Board of Education to order. We will recognize Ms. Lynch for the invocation.
Let us pray. May the words spoken in this room tonight be beneficial to the students, parents, staff, and administrators in our school system. And may we be led by the guiding principle to always base our decisions on the best interest of our young people. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the approval of the agenda for tonight.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hill, second by Mr. Filippelli. Is there any further discussion about the agenda? All in favor, raise your right hand. The agenda is approved. Board Chair comments. I wanted to let everyone know tonight that Mr. Smith is not in North Carolina, but he is participating by phone. So he is here. We appreciate him going through that extra effort to be with us tonight. Merwin, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right. So
We can hear you.
good. We can hear you fine. So I think that's going to work out. Also want to hope everyone's having a good summer. I want to let everybody know that here at the school system, our administration, our staff has been very busy this summer trying to implement the new technology program that we approved a couple of months ago. We had really hoped to be able to bring that to you with some detail tonight and some financial detail as well. Unfortunately, the legislative short session was not very short this year. So at this point, we still do not have the specifics on what the legislature has passed on how that's going to affect Lenore County. So I expect that we'll have to go to our next meeting for some more specifics on our technology program and the financial aspects of our technology program. So I just want to let everybody know that. As soon as we have that information, we will look at it and we will be getting it out to everybody. The next item is the superintendent's report.
Okay. Talk just a little bit about the new budget. We do not have our actual budget allotments yet, so we're not sure how this budget is affecting Lenore County Public Schools. But we do know there are some things that we are anticipating being in there that could cause us some concern. We are pretty sure there's still a cut in teacher assistants. We don't know at what level that'll be for us. We did have a cut to central office funds. We have a cut to transportation, which concerns us greatly. And there's a few other details in there that we're anxiously awaiting to get our exact numbers so we know how much that will affect us. We were hoping to have the budget on the agenda tonight, certainly, and get it approved, along with the Apple lease that we've talked about for a long time. Of course, we have none of the time been willing to move forward on this Apple lease until we knew that we could certainly financially afford that. So we're kind of held up by that. Some of the highlights for the budget, as you've already seen in many places, is teachers did get a raise. It's an average of 7%. There is some devil in the details when you look at that. It depends on how many years you have in service to determine what your percentage is. They've drastically changed how the teacher pay scale works, so it's now in increments of 5 years. And probably the thing that's of most concern to teachers is they will no longer receive their longevity as a separate check during the year. And it will be rolled into their salaries. So they will be unlike any other state employee in that they will not receive a longevity check after 10 years of service. Also, if you look at the upper end of the scale, it tops out at $50,000, which is certainly not, I think, adequate for a teacher that has put 30 years of service in and a full career to public schools. If you are at year 29, also you get a 0.29 raise, instead of the 7% that you've seen advertised. It is basically giving younger teachers a much larger raise, and that is good, but it kind of ignores the more experienced teachers that we depend on for some of our stability, and that I do have a problem with. It also eliminates, for people who have not already started their master's degree, it eliminates master's degree pay for them. And it kind of leaves tenure in some ways, kind of up in the air, but career status is basically gone, as far as we know, for those that do not have it. It leaves lots of questions about contracts, which we've been discussing with our attorneys, and they've been discussing, and it doesn't appear to me we have all the guidelines we may need, Carolyn, on contracts still.
We don't have any guidelines right now. I mean, between Judge Hobgood's decision, which finds the 25% unconstitutional, so that part of the new statute is gone, but the new part of the statute, the old statute was repealed. So you've got a group of teachers who still have tenure because they had already earned it, and then you have a group of teachers under the new statute that says you can have a one-year contract, and how that's to be implemented and how that's to be managed is to be unknown. And I'm not sure if there's indications that they're going to try to work on that and come up with something this week. We're hoping so. I know they're working on technical corrections bill right now, so there might be some added benefits to the budget that affect public schools and that. I know there's a couple provisions they're trying to close some loopholes on, but how much progress they're going to make, if any, on the teacher tenure and contract issue, I'm not sure.
And the other, to kind of flesh out the raises, it's very interesting that teachers have certainly got a good raise. Nobody's against that, certainly. All other state employees, except for public school state employees, received $1,000 in 5 years and 5 days of bonus leave. If you are a state employee and you are not a teacher and you work for a school system, then you receive a $500 raise if you work for the school system instead of $1,000 and 5 annual leave days. So why public school employees that are not teachers are different than regular state employees is a really good question. One that I haven't had answered yet, but anyway, that is the way it works this year. And just to kind of top that off, it appears that there is more money going to vouchers, and it is now easier than ever to have a charter school and to expand that charter school and to keep that charter school running. So it was, again, not a real good session for public schools. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Mazingo. Next section is public comment, and I understand we do not have anyone signed up for public comment tonight. So we will move to the presentation portion of our agenda. We recognize Ms. Lynch for a digital learning initiative presentation.
As you know, and as two of our members have said tonight, we are planning for a one-to-one initiative, and we have been since our task force recommended it last school year. We were hoping to bring the proposal, as you said, tonight, but with the budget being so late, we're not able to do that and are going to bring it to you as soon as possible. But tonight, I want to share with you what is taking place now in order for us to be ready when we do have final approval. And the first slide shows what we've named our initiative, LCPS, which is an acronym for Individualized Learning Creates Personal Success. Dr. Mazingo named this initiative, and we feel it's very appropriate because we know that every learner is unique. One-size-fits-all instruction doesn't work anymore, and having devices such as iPads in each student's hands will allow teachers to personalize and differentiate the learning and create success for our students. Our plan calls for a 3-year implementation. Year 1 is 2014-15, this school year. It will not begin when school starts, of course, but the plan is for it to begin later this year. During the first year, all teachers, K through 12, will receive an iPad, a laptop, and ongoing training. In addition, all elementary students, K through 5, will be issued iPads. Laptop computers on carts will be purchased to be shared throughout the schools. In year 2, each middle school student will receive an iPad, and there will be a few carts of computers to share, and of course, training will be for students and staff, and it will be ongoing. And in year 3, each high school student will receive an iPad. Training will continue, and carts with computers will be available for sharing. And you may be wondering why we are purchasing carts of computers when each student has an iPad. And the reason for that is that there are certain projects and certain assignments that are better completed with a computer. Most of the instruction can take place on an iPad, but there will be times when computers are needed as well. And we are purchasing only a few carts per school. This is a projected timeline, and this was when we realized that we're not going to be able to bring it to you tonight. We've moved it back to the September board meeting, but I understand it could be sooner than that. But right now, we're projecting that September 2nd or sooner is our target date for board approval. And then at the County Commissioners' September 15th meeting or sooner, we hope to get an approval for the lease agreement and contract. And after this approval, we will be ready to immediately place the order. It's ready right now. We can go anytime. And then by October 24th, we hope to deploy the staff iPads and computers, and we plan to distribute the iPads to the students by November 17th. And these are just target dates. We may be sooner or later, depending on the circumstances and how quickly things can happen. This is a tremendous project with lots of work to be done, so you ask the question, how is this going to all be managed? This is an organizational chart that indicates who will be providing the support and help to teachers and students. At the top, we have contracted Janice Adams to be our digital learning consultant. She is retired from Apple and has worked with projects such as ours during her entire career. She will be working with us a day or two a week to help us plan and organize for our deployment of our devices. She's also going to help us plan for professional development and generally guide our first year of implementation. Stacy Cawley, who's in our audience tonight, will be leading the instructional piece of LCPS as our digital learning instructional coordinator. Charles White will be the digital learning technical coordinator. He will work with the technical aspects of LCPS. Digital learning leadership will come from the principals and from the central office staff. And then to the school level. Each elementary school has selected a staff member to be their digital learning specialist. This person is a teacher leader that has a strong background in curriculum. Their responsibilities are to provide leadership, professional development, and instructional support to all staff. And also in each school, we have a digital learning team, which is composed of 3 to 5 members whose purpose is to provide training and support to the teachers in using a digital environment to plan, instruct, and assess student learning. This team has already met 6 days this summer, and they will be training the teachers, and they will be essential to the implementation of this program.
You might notice, like any good education project, we created 7 new acronyms in the process. We're good to go.
Yeah. Now we know that for this project to be successful, people must be in the know. Good communication is essential. To make sure that everyone is knowledgeable and is aware of plans and expectations, we have a district implementation team. Not only will they be the sharers of knowledge, but they will also be involved in completing the many tasks that will have to be done for a successful implementation. And you can see that it's comprised of elementary principals, central office staff, the digital learning specialist at each school. We have a parent representative, and we need a board member. So, Mr. Chair, if you could sometime tonight recommend or ask for a volunteer to serve on this committee, we would appreciate that. Our first meeting is this Thursday, and the team will meet about twice a month, and it will be divided into 4 major committees. And the focus of these committees is critical to sustaining our one-to-one. These areas are leadership, learning, infrastructure, community communications. And I just want to tell you just a little bit about each one of these and what they'll be doing. Leadership will include the mission, vision, goals, strategic planning, financing and funding, and measuring success. The first two areas are completed. The mission, vision, goals were a recommendation from the task force last year and approved by you. And also coming from the task force, the technology committee of the task force was the recommendation for the one-to-one. So the first two are done. Financing and funding is and will be a key function of leadership, as well as determining how we will measure the success of our program. Learning. Learning is the main thing. I want to just give you a sampling of some of the tasks that this committee will be accomplishing. They're going to be assessing content, creating lessons, training teachers, training students, training parents. They're going to be recommending instructional practices, planning and executing professional development, monitoring and evaluating results. Big job. And a successful deployment of our iPads is going to be dependent on the infrastructure committee. This committee will deal with things like networks, wireless capability, monitoring systems, workflow, distribution of iPads, security, repairs, technical support, warranty issues, inventory, lost or stolen iPads, procedures for collection, and that's just to name a few. There are many details that have to be taken care of. Community and communications. It's been a long, do you all remember communicating this way? We've come a long way since that communication. This committee will determine the methods of communication to be utilized. They'll be articulating our vision, adding to websites, writing district newsletters, developing fact sheets and frequently asked questions, working with the media, working with the parents and the community. As I said before, it is critical that people be kept abreast of what the plans are and the updates as we move along. Next steps. First on the list of next steps is to develop a detailed timeline of what has to be done before deployment. We started on this timeline last week and we'll be building on it over the next week or so. We're planning our launch meeting for the district implementation team this Thursday. This will be the first of many meetings to get things ready. We have to start planning now to be ready. The schools will also be developing their own committees that mirror the district committees, so that we're all speaking the same language and everyone's kept in the loop. Regular meetings will be scheduled throughout the year. We know you have a lot of questions. We too have a lot of questions. We don't have all the answers yet. We'll try to answer the questions that you do have tonight, but please know there is a lot to figure out and a lot to plan for. And this is where we're going to rely on our committees to figure out how some of these things are going to be done and what the answers to the questions are. So we'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have. You may be like us. We don't know what all the questions are yet.
Let me ask this, Ms. Lynch. What kind of a reaction from the staff and administrators have you seen to this initiative?
The staff is very excited about being able to have the devices, but they're also nervous because there's a lot to learn. They have a lot of questions about how are they going to be trained, when is that going to happen, the normal things that you would have when you are about to go into a big change in how you present instruction. So that's why we feel it's so important to have this organization in place and lots of support and help at every level.
We had a recent meeting with the elementary principals, and they had a ton of questions, but after we kind of laid out the structure and how we were going to go about it and where they were going to get some answers and their support, I think they felt a lot better about how we were going to do this. Otherwise, it just felt like this big thing was going to happen and there wasn't really organization and direction to it. So I feel like we at least have the structure set up and we at least have a mechanism to deal with things as it rolls out. And this is not, a one-to-one is not something that happens on day one. It's a process, not an event. So it will take really about 2 years to get totally ramped up so you're completely teaching with the electronic devices.
Do we have a model that we're following, or the person, the leader that you picked out, has she been in a rollout like this before,
Yes, she has. That was actually her job with Apple. And she actually worked with Greene County when they had their rollout as well. And she has already put structure in place for us. So yes, she has done this. I feel very confident about her expertise and her experience.
And we're actually looking at several models, and what Janice is bringing to us is the experience of having worked with probably 100 or so of these, and kind of knowing what worked, what didn't. Ours will be somewhat unique to all of those, but it'll incorporate many of the ideas that have come from those people who've done it before us.
And we have visited schools and seen things that we really need to do, and also seen some things we don't need to do. So the visits have helped as well to see it in action.
Did you just volunteer?
No,
that was
no,
all.
he didn't.
I heard.
He showed interest.
You open your mouth, you ask for it.
Does anybody have any other questions for Ms. Lynch? I mean, you feel this is really going to change the way we do education.
Yes.
It is.
I mean, that's your feeling.
I do feel strongly that it's going to change the way we teach and the way our children learn. Personalized learning, addressing the differences.
All right, last chance. And let me mention, Mr. Smith's actually watching a streaming video of the meeting as well, so he should have been able to see the slideshow. Is that right? Merwin, are you there?
Yeah, I can follow you.
Okay. Okay, having no further questions, we'll move to the next item, which is the financial report. Ms. Davis.
Good evening. I'll try to talk as clear as I can. I'm having a sore throat tonight, so please bear with me. The financial report reflects the year-to-date activity as of July 31st, 2014. Please note the beginning fund balance is before final year-end audit adjusted interest. May I answer any questions?
And at this point, we're still on a 3-month budget, is that right?
I'm sorry.
Are we still on a 3-month budget? Is that a quarterly budget? 4 months. Okay, I'm sorry.
Hopefully we'll have something final in place next month. Hopefully.
Is there any questions for Ms. Davis? All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on. The next item is the new policy presentation by Dr. Mazinga.
I'm going to actually let Ms. Lynch give you the details on this. This is actually a proposed new policy on teacher contracts based on the new situation we have with teacher contracts. And it probably will not be the last thing you see on teacher contracts, but this is kind of a place to get started.
And actually, I've talked with Carolyn today, and she said she would
Take it over.
take it over.
I think that's very wise. We're going to bounce this one around with somebody else.
Well, this is a policy developed by School Boards Association based on the statute that was developed that's now partially repealed. It does reflect that we're moving to a teacher contract system. It would be premature to adopt this policy now, even if it wasn't first reading, because we're not quite sure if anything's going to happen. The legislature still is in session. There's a possibility they may try to tie up some of the many loose ends that are out there in terms of teacher employment right now. Certainly all of our teachers aren't on contract right now. They're folks who already have tenure, so they're not on contract, and that's not really addressed in any statute at the moment. So we're hoping that they're going to make some progress this week. We have gotten some indications that they may be talking about trying to address some of this issue this week, but your guess is as good as mine at this point. So this is what the School Boards Association has come up with, teacher contracts based on the previous statutory provisions, and, you know, whether or not there'll be some recommended changes will depend on whether or not they take more action this month.
And this is for review, just for you to study it for a
First
month.
presentation, I think.
Right. And there are policies dealing with contracts for administrators, so it would be consistent if we're moving to that model, and certainly anybody who hasn't had tenure is a teacher that would have a right to a one-year contract. So there's no question that there's going to be a need for some sort of policy. The question is how we address it holistically.
And I take it you anticipate there'll be some more legislative action on this issue?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm sure there will be.
Any questions on the new policy? All right, we will move to the action portion of our agenda. The first item is the North Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors nomination. Dr. Mazinga.
Okay, a little earlier in the summer, the North Carolina School Board Association sent out a letter to board chairs, and I think I got a copy of it also, asking for nominations for their board of directors. The chair and I talked, and we believe we have a member that has both the interest and the experience to serve in that role. And I think the School Boards Association would look on that nomination with favor. I've asked Mr. Holmes to help us with getting the nomination packet and everything ready. But the first thing it needs is action from the board actually nominating this person for the North Carolina School Boards Association State Board of Directors. The person who I think we have is both willing and has prepared to do this is Mr. Bruce Hill. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn that back over to you.
And I will make a motion that we nominate Bruce Hill as a nominee to the North Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors.
I'll make that a second.
Motion's been made, second by Mr. Stroud. Is there any other discussion about the nomination?
Chair, do we need to have a board member make that motion as opposed to the chair? I'm
It's
not
up to
sure
you.
your
I'm not
local
sure what the
rules.
policy is.
I think your policy is that motion should be made by a member of the board as opposed to the chair.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
We'll defer to Mr. Filippelli's motion. This did not make Mr. Hill then.
It is to nominate Mr. Hill.
We'll defer to Mr. Filippelli's motion and second by Mr. Stroud.
Right.
Any further discussion on the motion? No further discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Mr. Smith indicates aye as well, so it's unanimous. Thank you.
Good.
So Mr. Hill is nominated, or at least to be eligible for that position.
Right, we will get the nomination packet to the School Board Association, and certainly wish Mr. Hill luck with that. Thank you.
Next item is a resolution supporting North Carolina Public Schools. I don't know who we're looking at for that.
Patrick.
Mr. Holmes.
That is I. Good evening. As you know, North Carolina is commemorating the 175th anniversary of the establishment of public education in the state. In conjunction with that commemoration, the North Carolina Association of School Administrators has embarked on a campaign to raise awareness about the achievements and value of North Carolina's public schools. Among other efforts, the association is asking boards of education across the state to affirm their belief in and support for public schools by approving the resolution before you tonight. School boards that approve the resolution will be included in a list of supporters of the website created for the commemoration, which is www.everychildschancenc.org. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Holmes on the resolution?
Motion to approve the NC Public School resolution as presented.
Motion made by Mr. Hill,
Second.
second by Mr. Stroud. Any further discussion on the motion? And all in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Or say aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Next item is fees, fines, and charges for the 2014-2015 school year. We'll recognize Ms. Ellen Benton.
Thank you, and good evening. You have the fees, fines, and charges documents. There's almost no changes to them from last year. We added camps to the elementary document because the new Read to Achieve law allows us to charge proficient students who would like to come to reading camp, and then any other camps schools would like to have. No changes to middle school, and just yearbook going up $5 for students who won't have their name monogrammed on the book. So I recommend they be approved. And the principals did have input.
What was the individual cost for camps, do you know?
We didn't,
Oh, we
the
didn't.
law changed right when we were getting ready to start our camps, and there were no camps at the schools, but this is just in case.
Okay, this would be for like next
Right.
year.
Right.
And let me have the privilege of making the motion to support the 2014-2015 fees, fines, and charges as presented.
Motion made by Mr. Hill,
Wait a minute,
You've
you're not
seen
gonna talk about the
parking
parking? I've been on the parking here.
We already talked about it.
Can you?
Okay. As long as you talked about it to somebody.
I know he got some problems with it.
there's a motion on the floor, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nobles. Any further discussion about the motion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Or say aye. Let the record reflect Mr. Smith votes affirmative. And that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benton.
That's the first.
Next item is surplus property. Mr. Brent Williams.
Good evening. In your packets, you have a list of equipment and other items from our departments of maintenance, child nutrition, and transportation. These items are either inoperable or are in need of extensive repairs that simply would not be cost effective for this school system to perform. Tonight, we are submitting the list for your consideration. We are asking that you approve this list as surplus property for disposal through direct sale or salvage as indicated in the packet, with proceeds going to the school system. At this time, any questions about the items?
Is there a procedure we go through on these vehicles in determining whether they should be salvaged or not? Do we have any idea what that procedure is?
When they simply are inoperable.
Who determines that? Do we determine that ourselves?
Our Department of Transportation, and it's a subjective determination, but when they simply, the cost of repairs starts to outweigh their value, total value, and these vehicles, I mean, hundreds of thousands of miles that we put on them, and the engines just wear completely out. And in some cases, they'll replace the engines and transmissions, and they keep going. And sometimes the actual physical body of the vehicle wears out, which is really quite something to see in some of these.
I would not recommend one of them for you.
If you do, you might not want to take a long trip. You'll need a AAA membership.
Any questions for Mr. Williams?
I move we approve the surplus property list.
Motion made by Mr. Nobles.
Second.
Second.
I got a second, I'm gonna call a second from Mr. Smith. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
It is passed unanimously, salvage property. Next item is revisions to our policies. Either Dr. Mazingo or Ms. Lynch.
It's going to stay this time.
I'll take it. These are policies that we currently have, and the School Board Association is making revisions, updates, legislative changes. All of these policies have been reviewed by our administrators or directors, and we are recommending that they be approved. Lots of them. It's about
Motion to approve the
35.
policies as submitted.
Motion made by Mr. Hill,
Second.
second by Mr. Nobles. Any further discussion on the motion? Then all in favor, raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is a motion to go to closed session.
I move that the Lenore County Board of Education go into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files, to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to consider matters relating to initial employment of an individual employee, and to discuss current litigation with the attorney Herring v. Lenore County Board of Education.
Motion made by Mr. Hill,
Second.
second by Mr. Nobles. All in favor going into closed session, raise your right hand or say aye. We are now in closed session. All right, we are officially back in open session. Next item is the personnel report with the addendum.
Motion to approve the personnel report and addendum as presented.
Motion made by Mr. Hill, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor of approval of the personnel report with the addendum, raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
So approved unanimously. Last item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Nobles, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor, raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
We are now adjourned.